Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is an action sci-fi titled, In Time. In the future, humans are genetically modified to cease aging at 25, but once they reach that age, they have only 1 year left to live. A timer on each person's forearm displays their remaining life, and time has become the world's currency. The wealthy can live indefinitely, while the poor struggle to survive day by day. Will wakes up to find he has less than 24 hours left. He greets his mother, Rachel, who is celebrating her 50th birthday. Their celebration is cut short when the conversation turns to their financial situation. Rachel reveals she has only 3 days left on her timer and reminds Will of the bills and loans they need to pay. Will promises to find the money, and Rachel informs him that she'll be gone working for the next 2 days and will use that time to pay off a loan. She instructs Will to meet her at a bus station afterward to transfer her more time. Rachel gives Will an additional 30 minutes for a decent lunch before they part ways. On his way to work, Will encounters a young girl, Maya, who asks for a minute of his time. Generously, he gives her 5 minutes and sends her off with a smile. Will then arrives at his workplace, a factory that produces time storage devices, and meets his friend Borel. After a long day, Will clocks out and receives his payment, only to find it insufficient. He demands more time, but the distributor explains that the quota has increased, and Will failed to meet it. Later, at a local bar, some men invite Will to gamble. He declines their offer but reminds one of them that he owes Will an hour. Taking the hour, Will goes on to meet Borel. Borel, intoxicated, points out a man who has been buying drinks for everyone at the bar, mentioning that the man has lived for over a century. Will notices someone observing the man and decides to warn him. He approaches the man, named Henry, and advises him to leave as he is attracting too much attention. Henry refuses and suddenly, a group of men enters, causing patrons to hurriedly exit the bar. Borel identifies them as Minutemen, gangsters known for robbery and extortion. Borel tries to pull Will away, but Will insists on staying to watch the events unfold. Assuring Borel that he won't do anything reckless, Will convinces him to leave. The leader of the Minutemen, Fortis, confronts Henry, demanding his time and even offering him the chance to fight for it. Overwhelmed, Henry excuses himself to the bathroom, where he vomits while a Minuteman stands guard. Seizing the opportunity, Will bursts in, knocks out the guard, and takes Henry with him. As they flee, Fortis and his men give chase. Will and Henry narrowly escape by climbing over a gate and hiding in an abandoned building. The Minutemen eventually give up the pursuit when one of them recognizes Will. As they catch their breath, Will and Henry introduce themselves. Henry reveals that he is 105 years old, but his mind is weary and he longs for death, which explains his reckless actions. Will becomes frustrated, considering the hard life he and his mother endure just to survive. Henry then unveils the dark secret of their world: the wealthy manipulate the cost of living to cause the poor to die, thus redistributing more time to the rich. In reality, there is enough time for everyone, but the rich are blinded by their greed and desire for immortality. Henry asks Will what he would do if he had the same amount of time as him. Will replies that he wouldn't waste it like Henry has. After reflecting on Will's words, the two rest for the night. Come morning, Henry transfers all but 5 minutes of his time to a sleeping Will. Upon waking, Will discovers the additional time and searches for Henry, only to find him on a bridge, smiling as his final seconds tick away. As his time runs out, Henry falls into the river. Later, Will visits Borel and meets Greta, Borel's wife, who is holding their newborn baby. Will shares the events of the previous night and reveals his newfound wealth in time. Now aware of the truth, Will is determined to seek justice. Before departing, he generously gives some of his time to Borel, who considers buying the bar across the street. Meanwhile, Rachel struggles to pay off a 2-day loan and attempts to board a bus. However, she discovers that she can't afford the fare due to increased prices. Despite her pleas, the driver and passengers ignore her. Desperate, Rachel begins to run. In a desperate race against time, every second and every step brings death closer to Rachel. Will spots her and they sprint towards one another, but tragically, she runs out of time and dies. A lifeless Rachel collapses into Will's arms, and he weeps, painfully aware that they were mere seconds away from the life they had always dreamed of. Now, Will has all the time he could ever want, but his mother has none. The next day, timekeepers recover Henry's body from the river. Senior timekeeper Raymond and his junior, Jaeger, investigate the scene. As they prepare to leave, Raymond notices a camera atop the bridge. Meanwhile, Will sits in a car with a new suit and a determined expression. They cross the time zone, a border separating different social classes. Throughout the journey, they pass several borders, paying increasing toll fees at each. The final border costs Will a year, and the driver welcomes him to New Greenwich. When the driver inquires about Will's true intentions, he replies that he wants to make the people of New Greenwich pay. The city is unlike anything Will has ever known. As he exits the car, he instinctively starts running, still accustomed to living with limited time. Glancing at his arm, he tries to adopt the demeanor of someone with time to spare. However, he has already caught the attention of a woman named Sylvia. Will checks into a hotel and requests a suite. In his luxurious room, he awakens with 105 years remaining. Despite the comfort of his surroundings, the memory of his mother's untimely death continues to haunt him. For the first time, he indulges in gourmet food and drink, tipping the waitress a week's worth of time. She observes that Will doesn't behave like everyone else, as he does everything a little too quickly. Will playfully responds that he doesn't rush the things that matter. Preparing to enter the casino, Will changes into more appropriate attire. At the timekeeper's headquarters, Raymond and Jaeger review surveillance footage of Will. Jaeger notes that a man has crossed multiple borders en route to New Greenwich. As they gather more information on the computer, Raymond reveals that he knew Will's father. Inside the casino, Will joins a poker table, where he meets Philippe, a billionaire with eons of time. After several rounds, Will accumulates more than 2 centuries worth of winnings. Philippe ups the ante by 50 years, but Will confidently matches the bet. The river card reveals the 6 of diamonds. Throughout the game, Will finds himself increasingly drawn to the enchanting Sylvia, seated beside Philippe. Philippe's rolled-up sleeves reveal a staggering 10 millennia of time on his arm. He discusses the vast disparity between the rich and the poor, rationalizing it as natural selection. He then proceeds to raise 2 additional centuries. Will calls, leaving his arm with only 30 seconds left. He wins the hand and is awarded a millennium. This victory brings excitement to Philippe's dull life. Will notices Philippe's daughter Sylvia and comments on her beauty. Philippe introduces her, and she invites Will to a party. The next day, Will buys a new car with his winnings and drives to Philippe's mansion. There, he meets 3 generations of women who appear to be sisters. Will feels out of place among the elite crowd. Sylvia approaches Will, rescuing him from a lonely evening. As they get to know each other, they find themselves dancing together. She asks if he comes from the ghetto, but he neither confirms nor denies it. Sylvia shares her feelings of emptiness and how her abundance of time feels more like a constraint than a blessing. As they talk, Philippe and his wife keep a close eye on them. Will leads Sylvia outside to the beach for some privacy. They strip down and swim in the ocean, floating close together under the moonlight. As the waves push them closer, their intimate moment is interrupted by a voice from the shore. They return to the mansion where Philippe invites Will to play poker. However, the timekeepers have located Will and confront him. Raymond, their leader, questions Will's presence in New Greenwich and his millennium's worth of time. Will explains that Henry gave it to him before taking his own life. Raymond is skeptical, he confiscates Will's time, and arrests him. As he's taken away, Will questions why Raymond investigates suicides when murders occur daily in the ghetto. This reminds Raymond of Will's father. Will overpowers the guards and escapes with Sylvia as his hostage. They flee in his car, pursued by the timekeepers. After a dangerous car chase, they evade their pursuers and hide under a bridge. In the morning, they continue driving but crash after hitting traffic spikes. Fortis and his men find the unconscious pair and steal time from Sylvia, and leave her with only 30 minutes. Will gives her some of his remaining time, and they rush to find more. With only 3 minutes left, Will knocks on Borel's door. Greta answers, informing him that Borel has died from alcohol poisoning. Sylvia becomes anxious as her time dwindles down to just a few minutes. Will notices her earring and they quickly head to a jewelry dealer. Desperate, they accept the dealer's offer of only 2 days' worth of time. As timekeeper sirens approach, they hide and later stroll through the city, discussing Sylvia's family business. Will asks how much they're worth, and she replies it's too much to matter. Will calls Raymond and asks for Philippe to transfer 1,000 years to the ghetto in exchange for Sylvia. Raymond warns him that he'll end up dead like his father. Will mentions his father died fighting, but Raymond says his father was doing something more dangerous. At Will's apartment, they bond over their pasts and grow closer. The next morning, Will checks if Philippe has transferred time to the ghetto, but finds none. Despite this, Will still intends to let Sylvia go. They exchange farewell gifts, a gun and a kiss, before she calls her father and chastises him. As they talk, Will remains unaware of Raymond pointing a gun at him. Sylvia notices Raymond, and without hesitation, she shoots him. Will points his gun at a wounded Raymond but decides to give him some time instead, and they flee in Raymond's car. Assuming the role of timekeepers, they steal a vehicle from an unfortunate driver. Later, they watch the news reporting about them. Will suggests Sylvia could still return to her father, but she refuses, not wanting her old life back, and they share another kiss. Meanwhile, Philippe tries to appease his partners, assuring them he didn't pay the ransom. Raymond interrupts and tells Philippe that his daughter doesn't want to be rescued. Philippe blames Stockholm Syndrome, but Raymond remains resolute, intending to arrest Sylvia. Philippe tries to bribe Raymond with his time, but Raymond is uninterested and leaves. The next day, Will teaches Sylvia how to shoot a gun properly. They discuss Will's plan to redistribute time, and she offers her help. They rob a loaning establishment and encourage borrowers to take as much time as they want. Fortis and his men continue robbing people for time and see a reward on the screen for Will and Sylvia. Meanwhile, Philippe watches the news about his daughter's continued crimes. Raymond and the timekeepers eventually surround the motel where Will and Sylvia are staying. The couple escapes and loses Raymond after a rooftop shootout and boarding a bus. Fortis continues his search and interrogates a group, threatening to steal their time. A man offers information about Will and Sylvia's whereabouts. At the motel, Will and Sylvia discuss the challenges ahead, accepting that if caught, they will die. Suddenly, Fortis and his men break in. They give Will a chance to play for his life. Will beats Fortis in a high-stakes game and manages to shoot him and his men. The couple later stands on a rooftop, feeling hopeless as they watch the cost of living for people keeps rising. Sylvia agrees but has a plan. They kidnap Philippe and force him to open his time vault containing 1,000,000 years. Despite Philippe's pleas, they take the time and leave. As police barricade the main road, Will and Sylvia's car is shot at, but they manage to get through and cross the border. Raymond continues his pursuit, eventually leading to a confrontation where he admits that he's from the ghetto but believes the wealth gap must be maintained. As they talk, Raymond realizes his time has run out and dies. Desperate for more time, Will and Sylvia race towards Raymond's car. Will reaches it first and transfers the time to Sylvia just in time. Citizens begin crossing borders into more expensive zones as societal hierarchy starts to crumble. Will and Sylvia continue their mission, this time, planning to rob a massive time bank to distribute the time to the poor. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more videos.